Hello, this is Jonah Rosenblum, and welcome back for another episode of Portage Football Live. Let's start with a couple of highlights that we saw for Week 2. Number one, of course, was the Crestwood Red Devils coming back from a 21-2 deficit against Streetsboro. Two major things came out of that game. Number one, Logan Toot is unstoppable. He shed more tackles in that game than you'd believe. But then on the Streetsboro side, you're wondering what happened to the Rockets being held scoreless in the second half, and how does that prolific offense with Russell Kendall, Dakari Carter, and Keyshawn Jones, these guys are verifiable stars, how do they avoid slumps like they had in Manaway on Friday evening? We also saw the Mogador defense allowing just 60 rushing yards against Gilmore Academy, a very impressive performance from the Wildcats. Then in a game kind of similar to the Crestwood game, we saw Field come back big time against Southeast. The interesting thing in that game is that neither team really established a passing attack. Southeast went just 5 of 15 for 38 yards. Field went just 4 of 8 for 38 yards. It was an old school football game. Both teams relied on the run. The question is, as the season goes on, are these teams going to have to establish a passing attack? And then finally, we talked last week on Portage Football Live about Mason Leidick's struggles in Week 1. Well, those struggles were no more. He went 9 for 15, 155 yards, 3 touchdowns. Last week against Manchester, it was exactly the Leidick that we remembered from 2015. He threw 2 touchdown passes to Jake Margroff, a screen pass, and a 45-yard bomb, so everything was working for Leidick and the Bulldogs offense. The team is 2-0, and they look as powerful as ever. Moving ahead to Week 3, we've got a couple of great matchups in Portage County. We've got Crestwood at Coventry. Coventry won 5 of 7 to end the year, so while the Red Devils are going to be your big favorites, certainly there is upset potential here. We also have Field against Ellett. Field, of course, had to come back from 10-0 down and 17-7 down, and they're playing an Ellett team that had 2 pretty easy wins to start the season as they beat up on Springfield and Talmadge, so that should be a great game. Then we also have the Garfield G-Men. They've gotten off to a great start, 2-0. The offense is roaring. Dalton Fall has been very precise, but this is their first road game, and to make it even tougher, it's Champion's first home game. So expect to see a lot of energy, and this will be the sharpest test the G-Men have faced thus far against a Champion team that really played them pretty well in Garrettsville last year. Garfield won that game 27-14, so this could be a real challenge for a G-Men team looking to move to 3-0. And then finally, our Record-Courier game of the week. You don't have to guess what it is. It's Ravenna-Kent Roosevelt. What else? The 102nd matchup in this historic rivalry. I think we're all looking forward to seeing this game, particularly as both teams look to escape an 0-3 start. One team's going to get that first win, and one team is going to be 0-3. You've got a Ravenna team that's been extremely competitive in its first 2 games. They nearly beat Talmadge, losing in overtime, and then you saw them lead Marlington by 11 points in the 4th quarter. They came so close to that first win last week. Let's see if they can pick it up this week against the Kent Roosevelt team that had to deal with a very difficult Stowe squad in Week 2. So that wraps up Portage Football Live. Now let's send you over to Rootstown, where I talked to Coach Jim Lenardi of Ravenna and Coach Tim King of Kent Roosevelt to round out the segment.
Hey, this is Jonah Rosenblum, sports reporter at the Record-Courier, reporting live from Rootstown, Ohio, which is a slight bit of an unusual place given that we are talking about the Record-Courier game of the week, which is Ravenna-Kent Roosevelt. But we had a luncheon here at the Northeast Ohio Medical University campus to talk a little bit about what this rivalry has meant over the years. We heard some great speeches, including from both Tim King of Roosevelt and Jim Lenardi of Ravenna. We had a guest speaker, a lot of discussion about what a rivalry means and about how these are the games that these kids will be telling their friends about 50 years from now. There's certainly a lot of meaning attached to this rivalry, and even though the 2 teams are 0-2 entering Friday night, if anything, that just adds more fuel to the fire, with both the Ravens and the Rough Riders in desperate need of a first win.
Well, everyone wants to get that first win, and as far as the rivalry game goes, that's a game that everybody's got circled on their calendars once that schedule comes out. So our guys have been keying to this one.
This is one of those rivalries that's fascinating when you go to the beginning of it. You see Ravenna 33-0 and 94-0 in 1911. In 1917, Kent Roosevelt won 58-0. So not the most promising of starts for this rivalry, but it has certainly tightened up over the years, including since 2000, both Ravenna and Kent Roosevelt have won 8 times. So the 2 teams are each 8-8 in the new millennium, and when they play on Friday night, they will decide not only who's the best team in 2016,
but at least temporarily that will decide which program has 50 wins and the most wins all time in the rivalry. It should be a fascinating matchup for Kent Roosevelt. They have a receiver turned quarterback in Blackman, so you can expect the usual athleticism from the Rough Riders.
Kelvon was one of our wide receivers and a corner for us last year, and has moved in. He's one of our hardest workers in the program, and he's taking over in that role as the quarterback. He's our most dynamic player, most explosive player, so this way we get the ball in his hands every snap, and as he's growing into that position and learning the ins and outs and the nuances of it, he's become more comfortable with it and developing into a fine player there.
And that's dangerous. Very dangerous. You got to keep him boxed up in the pocket. So, be aware of where he's at and if he's going to throw the ball, if he's going to take off and run it.
Similar situation, of course, for Ravens, where they've got Bowen Brown, but they also have Tony Lewis, a receiver who often comes in and takes snaps out of the Wildcat formation, and of course the Wildcat is always very difficult for opposing defenses to prepare for.
Tony's a playmaker. No matter where you put him, he's going to be able to make some plays for you and stuff like that. So, with his high IQ in football, whether it be a quarterback, a running back, or wide receiver, we want to be able to get him the ball. And on the flip side, Bowen, he kind of got his feet up underneath him this past week, being his second game on Friday night, and he was able to feel comfortable back there, have good protection from his offensive line, and throw the ball to playmakers like Tony and Kimani.
Sure. It's about recognition. It's about our players recognizing who's in the game for them, making sure that we're matching up personnel-wise and knowing all of our assignments. Who's got to fit the run on the outside, who's fitting the run on the inside, and our guys are doing a good job of learning that and mastering that and understanding the concepts that Ravenna wants to run when they're in the Wildcat and when they're not, and where they want to take the ball.
So a lot to look forward to on Friday as this rivalry enters its 102nd year. Reporting live from Rootstown, Jonah Rosenbluth.